Okay, I really have to say this, and this is something that I genuinely, personally feel I really need to say this, and, honestly, I really feel this way, and there's nothing that's going to change my opinion on this. No fan could ever say I'm wrong. I personally feel the moment that they took away the Donald Blake scenario of Thor, that just made Thor not special. And I'll explain why. Like, I grew up with my father's comics of Thor. And I love the whole having a doctor becoming a god and also becoming a superhero and fighting villains and monsters or whatever in Asgard, on Earth, and other places, and also becoming a leader of the Avengers. Yeah, that was a thing in the Avengers comics in the Silver Age of Thor and Avengers comic books. But the biggest problem I will say in the whole thing is, and I'm going to say this right now, and I don't care what anyone else thinks, the moment they took out the Donald Blake stuff out of Thor and just made him a god, or replacing him with another person picking up with the hammer, just made him just devalue the character. And in particular, what I'm talking about is Eric Masterson. Eric Masterson, to me, is the worst Thor, bar none. I couldn't stand him. When he was getting defeated by the Juggernaut, and he also was getting defeated by the Goliath, an X-Men villain character, and I'm like, there's no way in hell that Thor himself would fucking get humiliated like this. This is humiliating. This is disgusting. This kid doesn't even know how to utilize the hammer. I mean, yeah, you could argue, well, he couldn't utilize his powers because there are certain things that he was, let's just say, restricted to utilize. But I'm like, dude, when you have the hammer of Thor, just don't give me bullshit. You have power. You have abilities that you could utilize to defeat those fuckers. I mean, it just, And also in particular, this is the one thing out of all things Eric Masterson Thor would have utilized his power, is Thanos had the Infinity Stones. And when the Avengers and X-Men were fighting him, he could have utilized everything he had in Thor, just utilized that hammer and tried to defeat it. Granted, he would have got killed, but at least he would have died in a heroic way, if you ask me. It made me fucking just cringe on Eric Masterson. And when they gave Donald Blake back to being Thor again, it was cool. It was awesome. It felt like back to being basic on Thor. But then after that, they took that away, and it's just like, what the fuck, man? And X, Y, and Z happened. They had him become king, and the first time, and then later on, eventually Ragnarok happened, and that whole bullshit happened. And when he came back, and they brought back the Donald Blake scenario, and by the time that ended, I kind of feel like, oh, come on, stop playing games. Either you're going to bring him back, bring this classic storytelling that is, in my eyes, the definitive Thor era of Thor comics, or just stop doing it. Just stop. And granted, I like what Jason Aaron did because, they kind of made Thor a little bit, let's say a word, in a better word, relatable. He didn't utilize his hammer. He couldn't utilize it because he was unworthy, and I like that because the first time in his life, he's unworthy to wield his power, and he has to find some other way to be a hero. That was cool. That was interesting, and all that shit. And you could tell me that was horrible storytelling. I personally feel it was fucking amazing because it was risky to do that. For the first time, in my eyes, a writer that did something out of the blue for Thor and made him more of a interesting character that I'm like, okay, that's awesome. That's something that I personally could get behind on. And plus the way how Jane Foster was utilizing the Thor hammer, I was like, I'm saying right now, I'm done. I was loving it. I was happy. I was like, finally, someone utilized the hammer as it should be, besides Thor himself. And just, oh man, that just really made me happy. It really did. And if I get called out on, like, I like this specific Thor run, well, fine, fuck you guys. I don't give a shit. I mean, I like that storytelling because it reminded me why I love Thor and why I like Thor comic books. I like the meaning of that superhero where Thor was a doctor at that point, and the moment they took that away, he was not special as much as he should be. And you could make up the excuse by the book. I don't care. It's not going to change my opinion on other writers of Thor. You know, I miss the Donald Blake scenario on Thor comics. Granted, I am happy that Jason Aaron did something like that with Jane Foster, where Jane Foster, even though she was dying and she knew it's a 50-50 that she could survive of the cancer, she literally wanted to die as a hero. And that's something I really like, the whole meaning of something bigger, something interesting, and something awesome. And yet again, that's just me. I'm just a guy who enjoyed the classic era of Thor comics, and I just don't see people talking about it. And if they do, they talk about very little of it. And that's where I come in, where I'm going to do my reviews on classic Thor when I'm done with the Jane Foster books of Thor. I'm going to do that first because that's kind of easy, and then after that I'll do God of Thunder and Thor Volume 5, and of course the newer current run of Thor, and also other books of Thor like the 10th Realm, which I really like. I like Angela as the big sister of Thor. I only wish they could have utilized her when they absolutely have the opportunity to do it. But yet again, it is what it is. I'm done now. I personally think Jason Aaron is the second best writer of Thor. But that's just me. There's other stuff I love about different writers, but nothing tops Jason Aaron in my eyes. He did something original. He did something interesting and awesome, and just reminded me why I love Thor. And honestly, I don't think there'll ever be a writer that'll top Jack Kirby and Stan Lee. I want that to happen, but granted, I also want the Donald Blake scenario to come back. I would cry like a bitch if that happened. But granted, it is what it is. To me, Jane Foster is the second best Thor, if I had to pick any other incarnation of Thor. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I'm kind of done now. I'm sure I'm going to get roasted because I like a certain thing about Thor, and really, I just don't know what to say. Whatever, guys. I'm sorry I burst your bubble, but I like Stan Lee and Jason Aaron's run on Thor. And I honestly think, and I will still think, Eric Masterson was a horrible Thor. And for multiple reasons. And it is what it is, people. It is what it is. I'm kind of done now. I'm just kind of done. Anywho, I'll see you guys later. Bye.